The Man with the Hollow Smile.
When I was a child, I lived in a small town on the edge of a forest. My parents both worked long hours, so I spent most of my time exploring the woods near our house. One day, when I was about 9 years old, I ventured deeper into the forest than I ever had before. I wasn't afraid. I'd always felt safe there, surrounded by the trees and the sounds of nature. But that day, I stumbled upon something. Something that changed everything. I first saw him sitting by the edge of a clearing. He looked like a man, though his features were strange. His skin was unnaturally pale, and his eyes were dark, almost black. But it wasn't his eyes that made my stomach twist. It was his mouth. It was huge, stretching impossibly wide across his face, far too wide to be natural. It reminded me of a grin, but it was hollow, empty, like something smiling without warmth, without life.
"Hello there,"
he said, his voice smooth and calm. But something about it made the air around him feel thick.
"I've been waiting for you."
I froze for a moment, unsure whether to run or stay. I'd never seen anyone like him before, but he didn't seem aggressive, just strange. He spoke as though he had been expecting me, which made me uneasy. He looked like he was waiting for me to say something, but I couldn't find the words.
"My name is Sam,"
he said, nodding as though it made sense.
"I live here, in the woods. You're not supposed to go too far, you know. It's dangerous."
His voice was warm, friendly, too friendly for how out of place he seemed. For reasons I still don't fully understand, I didn't feel scared right away. I'd always been a curious child, and something about his presence drew me in. He invited me to sit with him, and we began talking. He told me stories about the forest, stories about places I'd never seen before, deep within the trees where nobody else ventured. As we talked, I found myself growing more comfortable around him. But at the same time, something felt very off. It was his smile, his wide, hollow smile, that kept nagging at the back of my mind. He never stopped smiling, not once. It was as though the smile had become part of him, like it was permanently carved into his face. Every day after that, I'd visit him in the woods. He always seemed to be waiting for me, patiently. He had advice for everything, little suggestions about how to make my life easier, how to be stronger, how to keep secrets that no one else should know. At first, it seemed harmless enough, just strange advice, but nothing dangerous. But the more I listened, the more isolated I became from my friends and family. I stopped telling them where I was going. I stopped sharing what he said. One afternoon, I mentioned to him how much I wanted to be alone, away from people. He smiled even wider, his lips stretching almost to his ears.
"Then you'll love it here,"
he whispered.
"The deeper you go, the more peaceful it becomes. Away from all the noise and distractions. The forest will give you what you need. Just trust me."
That was the moment everything shifted. I began spending all my time in the forest, wandering deeper and deeper into places I'd never been before. The further I went, the quieter it became. The sounds of the outside world seemed to fade away, and I felt more and more like I belonged to the woods. It was as if I could hear Sam's voice in the rustling of the leaves and the creaking of the trees. But there was no one else around. No one could see Sam. No one else ever came to visit him. And when I did return to the town, everything felt strange. My parents barely spoke to me anymore, and my friends grew distant. It was like I was becoming a ghost in my own life, an invisible shadow. One evening, after a particularly long day in the forest, I came home to find my parents waiting for me. They were worried, asking where I had been, why I was acting so distant, but I couldn't explain it. I couldn't explain Sam. I couldn't explain the hunger that had started to grow inside me. The hunger to be with him, to hear him speak, to follow his every word. The more I saw him, the more I felt like I was disappearing from the world. My parents, finally seeing how much I had changed, tried to stop me from going back to the woods. They said they were going to find help, but I couldn't hear them. All I could hear was the sound of Sam's voice, soft and inviting. I sneaked out that night, not telling anyone. I knew they wouldn't understand. I walked into the forest as the moon rose high in the sky, following the path that led me to Sam. I felt no fear, only the pull, the draw to him. When I reached the clearing, he was there, waiting for me, his face lit by the pale moonlight. His hollow smile stretched wider than ever before.
"Welcome home,"
he said, his voice soft and welcoming. And I followed him deeper into the woods, further than I had ever gone before, knowing I would never look back.